What's up, y'all? Welcome back. Today's recipe is going to be a real fun one. We're doing an Indian-style fried chicken po' boy sandwich. Been workshopping this one for a while, and I'm really happy with the way it came out. So, let me show you how I do it. The first step is to get my chicken marinating. I have just under 2 pounds of boneless, skinless thighs here. I'm going to trim these of most of the excess fat and cut them into pretty small pieces, somewhere around or maybe just under a square inch. I want to make sure everything is reasonably bite-sized. That should help with the structural integrity of the sandwich later. Once it's all chopped up, I'll work on my marinade components, first of which is going to be some grated ginger and garlic. I'm going to do basically equal parts of each, somewhere in the neighborhood of around 2 tablespoons each. For me today, that comes out to maybe a 3-inch piece of ginger and 3 cloves of garlic. Then I got a couple pinches of salt and a big pinch of garam masala. I made this one myself, but you can just use store-bought if you prefer. Then I'll do a healthy dose of red chili powder. This is going to make it spicy, obviously, but it's also going to contribute a lot of color, so I'm adding a lot of it. And then it's time for the liquid components, which will be the juice of 1 lemon and a few tablespoons of plain yogurt. If this recipe looks like the chicken 65 I did a little while back, first off, thank you for watching my videos, and secondly, yes, that's exactly what I'm doing with this marinade. At this point, it's the same recipe as that one, although it will diverge a little bit later. Chicken 65 is a perfect food in my opinion, so, why try to reinvent the wheel? So once that's looking good and evenly mixed, I'm gonna throw it in the fridge to marinate for at least a couple hours, and while I wait, I'll get a couple more sandwich components going. I think any self-respecting fried chicken sandwich needs pickles, so that's what I'm gonna work on next. I'm going to pickle some jalapeños, and that's going to start with a brine of 50-50 white vinegar and water, and then to that I'll add salt, and then to get it closer to the theme of the sandwich, I'm going to add some turmeric, mustard powder, fenugreek, and then a couple cardamom pods that I'll lightly crush. While that comes up to a simmer, to my pickling vessel, I'm going to throw in a couple smashed cloves of garlic, a bay leaf, and then I'll slice up my jalapeños. I'm going to do 3 jalapeños today. I'm going for rounds about 1/4 inch thick. Once I'm done with those and my vinegar mixture is simmering, I'll pour that on top. The turmeric isn't really going to dissolve, but that's okay, just something to note if you see flecks of it in there. And that's it for the pickled jalapeños. I'll give that a quick stir, and then I'll set it aside to cool for a bit, and then I'll throw it in the fridge. These are going to be delicious in a couple hours, and they'll be even better tomorrow. Now the last thing for this phase of prep is to make the dressing for a slaw I'm going to put together later. I'm doing a green chutney mayo that I'm going to dress some lettuce with, so first I'll get my herbs ready. I'm doing cilantro and mint for this today, about equal parts of each. Cilantro stems are tender and have a lot of good flavor, so I'm not that worried about those going in, but mint stems I'll be a little bit more careful about. Those are just tough and woody. I'll give those a good rinse, and while I wait for all the sediment to settle out of those, I'll get together the rest of my ingredients. So, into my food processor goes a clove of garlic, a piece of ginger that's slightly larger than the clove of garlic, 1 serrano pepper, a pinch of cumin seeds, salt, and then the juice of 1 or 2 limes. This one's pretty juicy, so I'll just stick with the 1 for today. Then, after a quick drain and spin, in goes all my herbs that I can never seem to get in here without making a big mess first, and then some water. Be conservative with the water, you really only want to add enough to get this to blend. The amount I added there was honestly a little too much, which ended up being fine, but ideally I want this to be pretty dry. At any rate, once everything is finely chopped up, it's done, so I'll get that out and add my last 2 ingredients, which will be equal parts yogurt and mayo, about 2 or 3 tablespoons of each. And that's going to be it for this sauce. Not only is this going to be delicious on the sandwich, but I think this stuff would be good on just about anything, so if you make extra, you're not going to regret it. Okay, so now it's time to jump a few hours into the future. My chicken has been marinating for 3 or 4 hours. I'd say that's a good minimum, but you could probably go overnight if you wanted to. It's time to create the breading for the chicken, which I'm going to be doing right in the bowl here. I'm going to do equal parts flour and cornstarch. The flour provides some structure, and the cornstarch keeps it light and crispy. Really important to note here, just about the only way you can screw this up is to add too much starch and make the coating super sticky and gummy. So make sure you start small. I'm going to start with just about a tablespoon of each, mix that in, and then see where I'm at. This still looks pretty wet to me, so I'm gonna add maybe another half tablespoon of each. The breading for the style I'm going for is pretty light, so you really don't need a ton of starch. It's not gonna be like an American KFC style fried chicken. You want each piece to be fairly well coated, but as soon as it starts clumping up like a dough and sticking to your hand, you've added too much. It should be much more like a batter. To me, this looks good. Still fairly wet, but each piece has a pretty even and thin layer of starch and marinade on it. This is ready to fry. So while I wait for my oil to heat up, I'll chop up the last few things for my sandwich. First, I'm gonna slice up some red onion, and then I'll do the lettuce for my slaw. I'm just using iceberg today since I'm really just in it for the crunch, and I'm slicing it basically as fine as I can get it. I'll hold off on dressing it for now just so it doesn't sog out on me. And then lastly, I have some tomato. This is just a big supermarket beefsteak tomato, the type you would find on any number of deli sandwiches. I like tomato because I just think it really works on the style of sandwich, and I like the extra juiciness it adds, but I'd say it's the most omittable component of the sandwich if you want to skip it. Once my oil is up to 350 Fahrenheit, it is time to start frying. The temperature is important there. If it's not hot enough, all the breading will just slide off the chicken when you put it in. I'm gonna put these pieces in one at a time so nothing sticks together too bad. And for this amount of chicken, I think I'll be doing it in 4 batches today. Basically, just keep putting chicken in until you feel like you're dropping it directly on top of each other. I like to give it maybe 30 seconds or so after the last piece goes in to make sure the crust sets up, and then I'll scooch everything around and give it a little shimmy with my spider. This is just to make sure that nothing is actually sticking to each other or to the frying vessel itself. If anything does stick together, it should be easy enough to just break them apart at this point. For pieces this size, each batch should take about 4 or 5 minutes, or until each piece takes on a deep golden brown and slightly red color. This first batch is done, so I'll take it out and then I'll check back in when I'm done with the rest. So here we are, 15 or 20 minutes later, and my last batch is ready to come out of the oil. Make sure you season these as they come out. It's pretty important to hit just about any fried food with a little extra salt as soon as it comes out of the oil. Now that my frying is done, it's time to start building my sandwich. So first, I'll go ahead and dress my lettuce now. I don't exactly want it swimming, but I am gonna go pretty generous with the sauce, definitely enough to fully coat everything. Now here's my bread. This is just a regular supermarket sub roll that I threw in the toaster oven for a couple minutes, just enough to warm it through and crisp the outside back up a little bit. I think it's important to not use anything too fancy here. This sandwich belongs on some nice, soft, white bread. I am gonna gut it just to make room for everything. Alright, now time for the layers. I'm gonna start with the tomatoes on the bottom, followed by red onion, and then some of my pickled jalapeños. Next goes the chicken. I'm gonna pile this on basically until I can't fit any more on it without it falling off. The goal is to be very generous here. And then in the top cavity goes my slaw. Again, basically as much as I can fit. And that's everything. Let me go ahead and close this thing up. I like to give it a little press just to make sure everything stays in there. And that's it. That's what I'm calling an Indian fried chicken po' boy. This is absolutely big enough to share, so let's cut it in half and get a good look at the cross section. Not bad. Nice and full with a good proportion of everything. Gotta say, this one is pretty outrageously good. Nice and spicy, and that chutney mayo really rounds it out. I love this sandwich, and I think you would too, so I hope you give it a try. If you do, let me know how it goes. Thanks.